So let's try to be quick here. I guess again a good question for you is that did anyone have like major issues with the exercise 4? I guess at least the feedback that I had from the assistants was that this was kind of easier exercise than the last one. So I hope that this has been more kind of easy thing to do, but not hopefully too easy. So we had the 3 problems to make this kind of and learn how to use functions. So we have the simple temperature calculator, then we had the classifier problem, and then finally we kind of made up this analyzer code where we used functions that we created. So just a few points.
Several returns instead of only one.
Okay.
I think it's maybe something that's worth mentioning. You shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Okay, good. So just a quick. I won't go through all the steps, but what you needed to do here was to create this kind of functions.py file where you should have collected your functions and then use those in other script. So just few points about the actual function. So you needed to do this for the Celsius function and add a docstring in the beginning. I have added here. This is quite overwhelming. So this is kind of a best practice thing to do. So you don't necessarily need to do this vast amount of stuff in your code and format it in this way, but this is kind of how when we are doing real kind of, for example, Python modules, this is how things are done usually. But usually when defining the functions, you basically define the name for your function and then some parameters. And then there was some basically confusion about, so we are now inside this for the Celsius function, and inside here we create a variable called converted temp. And there was a bit of confusion that, okay, if I do this variable here, you cannot actually use it outside the function. So you need to understand that everything that you define here inside the function, so the stuff that is intended, those kind of variable names are not kind of seeable outside that function. So all this happens only inside there, and basically what you need to do is to return the value, for example in this one, this converted temp, back to the user. And when you basically use this function, then you get the value from this variable that you return. There was one question about mentioned in the poll here. So I was stuck on exercise 2 for way too long because I didn't know that you can make several returns instead of only one. This wasn't clear to me at all from last week's lecture. That is true. You can return multiple values. I don't know what was the kind of case in this kind of solution that the student had, because basically you do not need to return multiple values in this exercise, but yeah, as said, I don't know what is the solution that the student tried to do. But basically you can return multiple values just by separating them with commas. But then when you use the function, basically you should also then kind of, maybe it's easier to, do we have a spider somewhere? Yeah.
Maybe the terminal.
Yeah.
Just type spider. Oh, sorry, it's in IPython.
Ah, okay. Yeah, spider. Just a sec. I just quickly demonstrate you so that you can see what I mean. Here we are. So we can create a function, let's say my function. and I don't specify any parameters to it. I just say inside here that a equals to 1 and b equals to 2. And basically I can return both of these variables from this function just by saying that return a, comma, b. And when defining this, nothing happens, but when we use this, we can actually see what happens. So when I call this my function, we get this kind of tuple with those numbers. And if you want to basically have these values on a separate variables, how you can do it is basically that you define my a and my b and then call that function. So what happens now is that actually what do we have in here in my a is that we have the first value in there and the second value should be in this my b variable here. So in this way you can basically take multiple values and assign them into these variables in this manner. So basically if you have two return values, you can create two different variables and then use the function. If you have three, then you should use three or so. Of course you can also get them inside a tuple just by doing this. So c equals to my function, but now as you can see the values inside this c are actually inside this tuple. So basically in this case you would get the value, actual value inside the c by referring to the index of those values. So just to clarify that a bit.
And I think probably for our purposes, you should be writing your functions to return a single value.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of, it's not an unexpected behavior, but it can give you results that you don't anticipate if you have functions that return more than one value, unless it's very clear that the function should return more than one value.
Yeah. It is not, at least for my work, it's not uncommon that you actually return more than one value, because in some cases it's just something that you want to do. But yeah, it might cause some unintended behavior, and it might be quite difficult to actually track what is happening here, what is the problem with my code. So it's definitely kind of encouraged only to return one value. Yeah. Okay, I guess that is about it for the functions. Then the kind of important thing in the temp analyzer was just to import the functions. So from functions import father Celsius temp classifier, from data import temp data. So you can import actually the data which was in the another Python script in similar manner as functions. And these were the kind of key points in this exercise. I guess it was quite clear, at least what I heard from the assistants.